Good morning and welcome. Before we begin our service, let us take a moment to share in our stone ritual. I place a stone for our joys. One for our sorrows. And one for our intentions for the coming week.
The UUCT care team follows up with congregants who are experiencing joys or sorrows. The care team also addresses needs of congregants. The care team can be contacted by email at careteam@uutampa.org. And now to our service.
Good morning. I'm Russ Patterson, and I'm going to be your worship associate this morning. I've been a member of our church since 2005, and I've been a Unitarian or Unitarian Universalist since 1991. Our worship service this morning is uniquely prophetic. It calls us to identify as white, to listen humbly, and perhaps with some discomfort to the lived reality of Black Unitarian Universalists in our midst. The discomfort is both a gesture of hospitality to voices that have not been heard enough and a sign that we're growing in the right direction. If you're joining us today as a guest, know that you're witnessing this Unitarian Universalist congregation doing sacred work. Collectively, we will wrestle with what it means to be a majority white faith whose anti-racist intentions have not always been borne out. We invite you to witness this moment of transparency and vision, and to join us on future Sundays for a more traditional worship service. We, who are Unitarian Universalists, often choose to make ourselves uncomfortable in the service of our meaning making. We recognize our discomfort as evidence that we are growing. Today, if you feel discomfort arise within you, especially if you're white, we invite you to practice being curious and to allow your discomfort to lead you to new learning. We light the chalice this morning with words by Adrian L.H. Graham. We kindle a flame of power, illuminating the holy in each of our faces. We recognize in the flame a passionate commitment to our shared faith. We are held and carried from day to day, week to week, in the shining of the light. This flame is mine as well as yours. We are brought together on this day, called to growth, to expansion within its glow. What does your heart know while it's beholding this holy fire?
Our next hymn will be number 118, This Little Light of Mine.
I'm Hi, my name is Bob Cappellini. I'm a member of the Care Committee, and as a member, I am going to be handling joys and sorrows. And we're starting today with a virtual presentation of joys and sorrows, and let's see how it goes. The first sorrow I have is from Marilyn Woodman, and she addresses this to members of the UU Tampa congregation. She says, my father, Richard M. Woodman, who was minister of the Tampa Church from 1963 to 1968, recently passed away. I thought there might be members of the Tampa congregation who would like to know of his passing. I enclose a copy of his obituary for you to use as you see fit. Thank you very much. Take good care, Marilyn Woodman. The obituary that she mentioned has been made available to our congregation via our Google email operation. The next sorrow is from Lisa Maddox, and she says, hi, Cap. I wanted to share that my father, John Maddox, passed away on May 27th at Avow Hospice in Naples, Florida, due to lung cancer. Now we have some joys. First joy I have is Russ Kirby, who is called Harmonica Doc by friends. He's one of the star players at our church Music Monday sessions. Russ just turned 66 on June 8th. And next one we get, joy, is from Diana Stevens and Grant Wilson. And she says, Grant and I want to celebrate our daughter, Ginny, and her husband, Drew's move to a new home in Greenville, South Carolina. They left Orlando in April. Since they worked from home, the move was seamless. Next joy is Barbara Kazanis reports that Arbra Kazanis turns 80 on June 16th. Next we have Kathy Bunch, who writes, hello, I'd like to send a joy. Jack Bunch has graduated high school. We're very proud and look forward to watching him continue to grow. And I personally would like to report that my youngest grandson, Tyler Cappellini, graduated from high school. His brother Brandon graduated from the University of Florida. He got his BS degree in engineering. He'll do another year as a postgraduate to get his master's degree. Tyler will join him at University of Florida, and they'll be roommates for that year. My twin granddaughters, Ariana and Nicole, celebrated their 29th birthday on June 10th. And that's it for joys and sorrows. Should you wish to contact me for further joys or sorrows, please see the address that you'll see on your screen. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Erin Powers, and I am the Director of Religious Exploration for Children and Youth here at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tampa. And today I am your worship leader. I'd like to begin this time with a prayer. This prayer and many of the words being used for today's service come from the promise and the practice. This body of work was put together in 2017 in response to sacred work being done to confront the culture of white supremacy as the dominant culture within our Unitarian Universalist Association. Much work has been done, and there is still so much work to be done. It is holy work. This month, we are committing to lifting up Black voices. You will hear a little of my reflections on the words I'm sharing, but I mostly want you to listen with an open heart and an open mind to the prophetic words of our Black siblings in faith. Many in our church community are trained in listening pastorally. Many more engage in small group ministry. Listen to these words as you would to those sharing in your small groups. Listen to these words as you would those of your dearest companion. This means listening while setting aside judgment. Listen wholly with your full attention. Do not listen to respond. Listen to hold space for hearts and souls that are hurting. Listen so that you may share the burden of the sorrows and multiply the joys of triumph. Listen so that your spirit, your soul, your heart center may expand to hold all that is holy and sacred in these words. With that, let us now take a deep breath together. This prayer comes to us from the Reverend Viola Abbott. Let us open our hearts, still our minds, and enter a time of prayer. Let us call forth and hold in our hearts the stories of all who have come before us, the memories of those who are not here with us today, and the hope for tomorrow and for all of those who will come after us. Let us be thankful for this opportunity for healing, forgiveness, and reconciliation, while knowing that we can never, should never forget what has brought us here today. Let us be glad that voice has not only been given to those whose sorrow and pain were their companions in faith, but that the stories told by those voices have been received with a goal of redemption and understanding. Let us call upon the light which shines in each of us to give us the strength to walk together into the future and do the work that is necessary and which does not end here today. Let us have the wisdom to lovingly have the conversations we need to have with each other, that we must have with each other, in order to grow this faith with radical love and inclusion. Amen. Bayard Rustin is not a name many people know, but he was an essential part of the civil rights era in the 60s. Bayard Rustin was a Black gay man who worked closely with the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Part of the reason he stayed in the background was because being gay in the 60s was not accepted by many. But Bayard was not deterred by the thoughts and actions of those who choose to not see his humanity. Instead, he used his close ties with MLK Jr. to help make the marches and actions more successful. Bayard was raised by Quaker grandparents. Quakers believe in peacefulness and the oneness of the human race. They do not use violence in any instance. Bayard also studied in India with Mahatma Gandhi. This deepened his commitment to working for justice in nonviolent ways. He said, "We need in every community a group of angelic troublemakers." Bayard's passion for nonviolence and excellent organizing skills helped to shape the civil rights era. He was a trusted advisor to MLK Jr. Bayard was the man behind the scenes who made sure the marches had a clear plan. He made sure there were enough bathrooms for the marchers. He helped decide what the protest sign should say. He helped things to go smoothly so that the message of equity and justice for Black Americans could be heard loud and clear. And he helped to keep the marchers as safe as possible, even though police and other American citizens still used violence on many civil rights activists. What I want us to learn from Bayard Rustin's life is that we all have a part to play. The work for justice needs all kinds of people to do all kinds of work. Yes, we need people who can speak to millions and inspire. And we need people who can march and use their bodies to show how many people care. And we need people to write letters and make phone calls to lawmakers. We need people to care for the marchers and activists. We need people to have tough conversations with friends and family. We need people, both big and small, to make changes, both big and small. Bayard understood that racism hurts all people, not just Black people. He said, we are all one, and if we don't know it, we will learn it the hard way. Our seventh principle reminds us of the interconnected web of existence. When Black Americans are harmed, so are all of us. We must work to make our country a safer place for Black Americans, to make our country a place where Black Americans can thrive. This week, I invite you to talk with your family, to figure out what you can do to bend the arc of justice towards equity for all. And I hope you will share your ideas with your church family. Together we are stronger, and together we can do more, and together we can be angelic troublemakers. For our meditation today, I'm going to share a story from a Black colleague. I invite you to open your heart and listen. The summer of 2016 began as an exciting one for me. My children and I were finally going to a beloved Unitarian Universalist retreat center. On the drive there, I felt excited about spending a full week in an entirely UU space. I needed this week. I needed this healing. As UUs descended on the camp and found their rooms, I began to introduce myself to others and thought I noticed them offering me a cursory hello before making a quick getaway. Maybe, I thought, it was hard for people to speak to me because I had my 1-year-old in tow. Maybe they were eager to reconnect to old friends. There was one other Black woman at the camp who I had noticed. I was thankful we both signed up for the same program. I asked her, was it just me? Or did she too feel a distinct coldness from the others? I wanted to make sure I was not being paranoid. But unsettling things continued to happen. There was an issue with my daughter in childcare. Then a Black child, the same age as my son, 12 years old, came crying to me one night. He was being bullied, but he wasn't being heard because the adults around him insisted that they knew that girl and she would never say those things. This child trusted that as a Black mother, I was the only person at the camp who would listen and believe him. I brought the matter out in the open. The typical excuses followed. I tuned those excuses out, and I spent a lot of time alone this week. When my daughter and I walked around the conference center, I saw reminders of racism everywhere, from the statues and memorials to the paintings on the walls. It was everywhere. It was clear as day. Your kind are not welcome here. I would end my strolls by going to the dining hall, only to find there was no table for me. Not because there weren't empty chairs, but because I was told the empty seats were for other people. The pattern became so distressing that on most days I considered not eating, but I couldn't let my child starve. If my new friend was there, she always made room for me. Then one evening, my youngest finally settled down enough for me to attend the evening worship. I was so excited. The guest speaker spoke so eloquently, talking about what he called the elephant in the space, how the camp was rooted in racism. His words brought me to the edge of my seat. I was thrilled and excited. I hadn't been paranoid. This white man saw what I saw. He was naming my hurt, my truth, and I was elated. As we left worship, my heart felt light. In the darkness that surrounded us, the voices started. I heard campers who couldn't see me, a Black woman listening, agree that it was one of the worst services they had been to at the camp, and how they couldn't believe he dared to say those things, and how they, who had come to the chapel to be uplifted, did not want to have that kind of mess thrown in their face. I melted into the darkness that surrounded us. That night, I cried myself to sleep. When I left the camp at the end of the week, the knot that had formed in my stomach started to ease. Once home, I shared my story, my truth, with multiple people who were connected to the camp and its programs. People who I believed might use my experience to make future conferences and retreats more welcoming. I even offered to teach, to add some diversity to future retreats. I was told by each person that they would pass on my information and have someone contact me so they could get a better idea of what had happened and how I felt so it wouldn't happen to others. That never happened. Many times, as a Black woman, I hold in my pain and my experiences to protect others, to keep and hold up the white fragility that I have been taught, or rather trained, to value more than my own feelings and my own experiences, more even than my own needs and self-worth. I have been trained to minimize myself, my light, my voice, to just grin and bear it, to put up with it because I should know that they mean well, or I didn't want to seem too sensitive or be the angry Black person in the room. But I'm tired of being silent. It's a heavy load to carry day in and day out. Sometimes I'd like to take off my Blackness and pick it up another day. Sometimes it's just too heavy a load. But I can't, so I press on. So I ask this question whenever someone will listen. Who is standing in your dining hall looking for a seat at the table? And can you make room for them too? So I share this story as a meditation. I was at this retreat. This colleague and I connected over raising Black children. We spent several hours throughout the week hanging on the playground while our Black children played. We talked hair and the struggle of raising strong-willed children. We still keep in touch. And yet, that connection was still lacking in me being truly present to my colleague. So as we spend some time in meditation today, I invite you to think of the times when you might have been a better support to Black people in your circles. This is not a time for guilt or pity. And this is most certainly not a time to get in touch with any Black friends, family members, or colleagues to confess. This is a time for you. This is a time for personal reflection. This is a time to meditate on ways that you and I can do better next time.
The teal hymnal 1008, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell the story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
I want to tell a local story about a bridge and a Black woman named Fortune Taylor Ranson. She often went by Madam Fortune or Auntie Fortune. Fortune was once enslaved, but now was living as a free Black woman, as free as one could be at the time. When her first husband died, she was granted ownership of their 33 acres on the shore of the Hillsborough River, where the Straths Performing Arts Center now resides. Fortune was known for her baked goods and was well loved by the children with whom she shared pies and other goodies. As this part of town grew, they eventually built a bridge to help expand and get workers from one side of the river to the other. The street that led to the bridge and the bridge were named Fortune Street and Fortune Street Bridge because it ran through Fortune's homestead. Fortune Street and the surrounding areas were once a bustling business district. The original bridge was fraught with issues and was eventually rebuilt into what we have today. As progress goes and the interstate went in and streets got rebuilt and moved, Fortune Street was cut short. The area was no longer the lively center it had been. In 2010, Fred Hearns, who has been a speaker at our church, tried to get the city to change the name back, but they refused, saying it would be too confusing to have the bridge with a different name than the street it was on. The name change did finally happen in 2017, and the bridge is rightfully named again with a marker telling Madame Fortune Taylor's story. This is not a unique or an unusual story. It has happened and continues to happen in many ways over and over across our nation. So what can we do to reverse course on our knowledge of the history of Black Americans, many who were enslaved? How can we make sure their stories and their contributions are not forgotten? And how do we decide who gets to be remembered and who doesn't? Fortune was not a revolutionary, but she was well loved enough at the time to name a street and a bridge in her honor. And that street remains the only street in downtown Tampa named after a woman. Often, it seems we only want to remember Black Americans when they've died for a cause or at the hands of others. But can we remember those who were beloved just for who they are? Especially in a town that dedicates the first several months of each year to an imaginary pirate. It's important we remember the times we've missed the mark. We need to learn from our mistakes and do better next time, and do what we can now to make things right. And we are missing out on the joy and artistry and ingenuity of Black Americans when we erase their history. Let us always be willing to learn from our history. And may we hold the memory of the ordinary and extraordinary forebears in our hearts always.
To support the UUCT with your generous financial gifts, please go to the UUCT website and click on the Click Here link to donate. It will take you to our donation page, and you can securely make your donation to the church. Thank you.
I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know, 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 I know. I know, 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 I know this rose, I know this rose, I know my fear, I know my fear, I know my soul, I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose, I know this rose, I know this rose, I know my fear, I know my fear, I know my soul will unfurl my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose, I know this rose, I know this rose, I know my fear, I know my fear, I know my soul, I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose, I know this rose, I know this rose, I know my fear, I know my fear, I know my soul will unfurl my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose, I know this rose, I know this rose, I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. Unfurl its wings. I know this rose, I know this rose, I know this rose, I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. Unfurl its wings. I know this road, and open, open, fear will open. I know my soul will unfold its wings. I know this rose will open.
So now what? What do we do? Where do we go from here? It can all seem so overwhelming, but this is not a time for despair. There's too much at stake. This is a time for action. Every bit helps. In recent years, we have been acting more like our Florida afternoon summer showers. Fast and furious, and then over as quick as we started. It is time to shift into a more steady and sustainable pace. The tides are turning, but we need to keep pressing on to make sure they turn all the way. There are so many ways to get involved in local actions and national actions. Writing letters, making phone calls, and sending donations can all be done from home. Choosing to spend your dollars at Black-owned businesses supports our local Black economy in meaningful ways. The Green Book of Tampa Bay is one organization compiling lists of local Black-owned businesses. I encourage you to look them up and see what you can find. Educating ourselves and having tough conversations with friends and family is one of the most meaningful and loving things we can do. Not letting casually racist comments going unchallenged. Doing some research on your own when someone challenges you. These are all ways we can live into our Unitarian Universalist values. We talk a lot of love in our faith. As we close our time together, I'd like you to ponder these thoughts on love by the Black author Austin Channing Brown. She writes at the end of her book, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness. I need a love that is troubled by injustice. A love that is provoked to anger when Black folks, including our children, lie dead in the streets. A love that can no longer be concerned with tone because it is concerned with life. A love that has no tolerance for hate, no excuses for racist decisions, no contentment in the status quo. I need a love that is fierce in its resilience and sacrifice. I need a love that chooses justice. So how will your love show up in our community and our world?
Hello, everybody. Our next hymn is number 168, One More Step. One more step, we will take one more step, till there is peace for us. Everyone will take one more step. One more word, we will say one more word, till every word is heard by everyone. We'll say one more word. One more prayer, we will say one more prayer, till every prayer is shared by everyone. We'll say one more prayer. One more song, we will sing one more song, till every song is sung by everyone. We'll sing one more song.
We extinguish our chalice with these words by Kimberly Quinn Johnson. We are the ones we have been waiting for. We are not perfect, but we are perfectly fitted for this day. We are not without fault, but we can be honest to face our past as we chart a new future. We are the ones we have been waiting for. May we be bold and courageous to chart that new future. May we have faith in a future that is not known. We are the ones we have been waiting for. The words, we are the ones we have been waiting for, are the words of June Jordan in the poem for South African women, which she presented at the United Nations on August 9th, 1978. Thank you very much for joining our service today. It's been a rough 2 weeks for a lot of us, seeing what's been going on in our country. We also are really missing each other, and I'm looking forward to the day that we'll actually be able to be face to face. May we go forth and find the ways in which we can bend the arc towards justice. Thank you. Goodbye.